Dark Souls, a unique cult third-person action game with loot systems, incredible difficulty, and offering an experience that is as uniquely Japanese as it comes. So much so that people are actually avoiding the game because of this very nature, the fact that it is unforgiving, the fact that it is difficult, and the fact that westernized gamers are not ready for such an experience. This game also comes with a player versus player element. Well, what does that exactly mean? Well, hopefully at the end of this video, I'll be able to explain that to you, and you'll understand the plethora of videos that are going to be appearing on my channel, and what the real allure of humanity is in Dark Souls. So, player versus player. We've all heard of things like League of Legends, we've all played on Call of Duties, we've played every kind of multiplayer experience that exists at this moment in time. They're innovating in fresh new unique ideas on how to apply this into single player environments. Dark Souls and Demon Souls before it are no different. There are two states of existence in Dark Souls. Hollowed, which is dead, or undead technically, and human form, where you use a humanity to reverse the hollowing effect. And think of this as two sides of a coin when it comes to the gameplay. On one side, when you are hollowed, you generally will have a single player experience that is tailored towards fighting the environment and fighting the AI. If you transform into human form, not only can you then interact with other people on other servers in human form and some in soul form, but you also open yourself up to encountering human players that will want to try and kill you, or fight you, or grief you, depending on their connotation and their mindset at that moment in time. So it begs the question, the advantages of being in human form and why anybody would choose to do it. So it's kind of simple on a base level. Humanity enables you to get more items, they drop much more frequently from enemies the higher your humanity is. You also get transient buffs to your statistics from having high humanity. It's not quite as much as it used to be before they patched it, but it's still a healthy attribute. It's also going to buff chaos weapons, which is an upgrade path that not a lot of people who are unfamiliar with the game will go down. But there are a lot of benefits to it. You are also able to summon players from other worlds into your own to help you kill bosses, help you traverse areas. There are a lot of benefits to being in human form, but you can get invaded. So how do you avoid being invaded? That is probably the best thing to do if you don't want the player versus player aspect. So it's actually really simple. There's a lot of ways you can do it. The first one is the obvious. Stay out of human form. You might miss some of the better features of the game, some features people will never even touch, and it's entirely your preference if you choose to do this. But if you want to be in human form and you don't want to get invaded, there are tricks that you can employ. There are a bunch of items in the game world that can help you against invasions. So the first one is, if you're wandering around in human form, you should equip a Homeward Bone as your usable item on the screen. If that bone, for whatever reason, ever greys out, it means somebody's trying to invade you. And from that moment on, you'll know that the bonfires will be deactivated, so you'll not be able to rest, your area will be locked in, and you're going to have to fight another player. If this is not something that you're looking for, and you have items such as the Black Separation Crystal, you can use that when he turns up in your world to send him back to his own world. You use it simply, it sends him away, the match is over, and you can go and alter whatever you're doing to try and get away from human form or to stop yourself from being invaded. Secondly to this, you can actually start the game in offline mode, and this might sound like a bad idea to people that want to play online, but Dark Souls is such a strict game that you can't party chat, you can't talk to people, you can't do a lot of things you're usually able to do in games while online, so being offline is absolutely no penalty with this game. And what happens when you start the game in offline mode is you can be in human form, you can be in undead form, and you will never ever get invaded. It is the best way to avoid invasions. On the reverse of this, why would you want to avoid invasions? Which is the counter-argument. So firstly, when you get invaded, you do not know the level of the player that is entering your world. You do not know the level of equipment that the player has when he enters your world, and you do not know the skill of the player. And this is three variables that can undoubtedly make an invasion a very nervous and intimidating encounter. But it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. because there is a certain etiquette that goes into play depending on the player that you fight against, and you can generally tell what invader you're up against by the equipment that he wears, and this is all down to your experience with the game, so it is not something I'm going to go into detail with, but if you watch my PvP series, hopefully you will learn something from them as I try and divulge as much knowledge as I can to you. But the benefits of invasion and invading yourself: you lose absolutely nothing when you die when you invade, and when you die when you're invaded, the only thing you lose is progress, and that is the progress from the most recent bonfire you've rested at. And to some people, this might sound like a frustrating event, but to somebody playing Dark Souls, you must have already gotten over the fact that you have to retrace your steps a lot of the times when you die, so you should not be getting angry at this fact. It should just be another part of the agriculture of the game. That's all it is. You're just dealing with the environment. The benefits to beating these encounters are immense. You never know who's coming into your world, and you never know how many souls they have, because if you win an encounter, you will not only receive humanity, but you will receive the souls of the player that you vanquished. And I was in a player versus player match the other day, and I got 188,000 souls off somebody. You can get millions of souls, and that is enough so that you never have to farm in the game again. So there are definite benefits to trying out the player versus player element. The tragedy of PvP in Dark Souls, however, is there is a lot of exploitation that is happening. And exploitation by the means of people 3v1ing dudes, 2v1ing people, people setting up ambushes, traps, people playing cheaply. There is a lot of people that are trying to farm invaders so that they can get as high soul counts really quickly, and doing it through less than fair and honourable duels, which is sad but a very true fact. And there's no real way to avoid this, because if you're invading, you are entering a world of your own accord to do something that they deem undesirable. So a lot of people are probably thinking, why even bother showing any kind of humility, showing any kind of, manners when it comes to dueling and when it comes to fighting? And in a 3v1 situation, I would generally say throw the rulebook out of the window, because it's the only way to survive. But once again, I will elaborate on those kind of encounters in my PvP sessions. And lastly, PvP etiquette. There is a bunch of forums, a bunch of wikis, all that kind of good stuff that tell you what is the best way to approach player versus player. And a lot of it is generally, make sure the guy notices that you're there, make sure that he's cleared the area out of enemies so you can have a fair fight, bow to initiate the fight, wait for him to bow back, and then the encounter begins, then bow respectfully at the end. This is not a mandatory thing to do, and there are multitude of people who completely ignore any kind of duel in Dark Souls. They will just attack you, and this is not a bad thing. I personally think it's bad, but it's not a bad thing for the game, because at the end of the day, you cannot tell people how to play, and people are always going to play their own way anyway. It's just how the world works. The reason why you will never see me do it is because I do not believe that just because other people do it does not mean I should. The real reason I weigh in high when it comes to respectful duels in Dark Souls is because you can breed behavioural patterns with people through experience, and if you give people a bad experience online, they will not want to do it again, and you will affect the community, you will lessen the player count, and you will make it harder for people to enjoy this particular breed of player versus player. So always try and be respectful, I believe, is the best way to go forward, and you'll make friends, you'll have a good time, you'll just enjoy the game much more, and that way you are not stooping to anybody else's level, and hopefully you'll have good honor fights, you'll have good duels, and people, regardless of if they win or lose, will enjoy the experience, for better or for worse. But that is my little summation of the player versus player account in Dark Souls. I hope you're looking forward to seeing more of it. I will try and make my commentary as easy to understand as possible for new people, and anybody that has any understanding of the game, I will also try and tailor my knowledge and my expertise, even though it's kind of small right now, towards as wide an audience as possible, because I'm really digging it right now, and I hope you do too. So the final question should really be to PvP or not to PvP, and I will leave that with you